Good morning. All right, now you know I'm a high school principal, so I need it better than that. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the 2018 Candidates Forum. My name is Christine Handy, and I am the 2018-2019 president of NASSP. As a service to all who are not able to be in the room with us today, we will be live streaming Meet the Candidates and the conversation with the president-elect candidates. Those of you who have been a part of this process in the previous years will certainly notice that things look, well, a little different this year. I'd like to explain the change and what will be happening over the next hour and a half. The NASSP Board of Directors gave a great deal of thought to the NASSP board election process and the role of the Board of Nominators. Our process for creating a slate of candidates for the election at the annual meeting has gradually been evolving, both to respect the Board of Nominators' time and to elicit the most relevant information from the candidates. The NASSP Board of Directors adopted this new process at its March 2018 meeting. The board recognized the importance of candidates who run for the at-large seats and for president-elect to have an opportunity to make themselves known as a candidate to our members. Today, during the Meet the Candidates portion of the Candidates Forum, candidates for the at-large middle-level director and for president-elect will each have an opportunity to talk to you. The two candidates for president-elect will each have 5 minutes to speak. The two middle-level at-large candidates will each have 3 minutes to speak. Immediately following the Meet the Candidates, we will offer a conversation with the president-elect candidates. The consensus of former president-elect candidates described the Q&A as an endurance exercise that neither resembled any authentic activity of a president nor provided an opportunity to share the attributes that might make his or her tenure successful. So in place of a 15-minute Q&A with each president-elect candidate, this year, NASSP will conduct a 1-hour conversation with the president-elect candidates. In making this change in format, it was the board's intention to create a more comfortable and interactive platform where candidates are able to engage in conversation about essential content. NASSP reached out to all of our state coordinators for suggestions for questions, and we had an excellent response, so thank you, state coordinators. Bob Ferrace, Marketing Design Group Director of Public Affairs, built today's conversation around those questions. The conversation will revolve around the 5 domains of the president's work: governance, advocacy, leadership development, student programs, and communication and outreach. And this will be moderated by Bob, who is an experienced moderator who is well known and highly regarded among NASSP members. So let's get started. Let's get things going. I'm going to turn this program now over to Dan Kelly, the chairperson of the 2018 Board of Nominators. Please help me welcome him to the podium.
Thank you, Christine. It's great to see so many of you here this afternoon. I would like to take a moment to recognize our NASSP board members who all seem to be sitting in that very front row. If you guys could all stand, guys and girls, and be recognized. Thank you for all of the work that you do for our organization. I do want to take a quick moment to go off script, and Joanne doesn't like that, but I'm going to take two moments here. I do want to thank all of you for your support this past year. It was just a tremendous and awesome year to serve as president of NASSP. I want to share 2 quick takeaways from my year. The first is the importance of relationships. Getting to meet many of you in this room this year and so many others across the country, I will really treasure those relationships that I developed this year. come to the conclusion, though, that more important than curriculum, instruction, and assessment, it's our job as school leaders to make sure that we're developing relationships every day with any constituent that is within grasp. The second thing, and Bob, you'll be very happy about this, is tell your story. Education is not broken in this country, but we all need to help change the negative rhetoric that fills our days. So please blog, tweet, Facebook, whatever method that you like to use to share the great things that are happening in all of your schools. And please try to do that daily. And let's try to drown out that negative with a lot of positive stories. Christine, best of luck to you as you begin your year as president. And lastly, they're not here, but I have to publicly say it. I owe a great deal to my wife, Michelle, and my kids, Andrew and Caitlin. They're over at Taste of Chicago right now, but they have been tremendously supportive of this crazy year on the road with Daddy being gone. So with that being said, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. With that being said, the purpose of today's forum is to introduce you to the candidates to serve on the board of directors as regional, diversity, or middle-level at-large representative, or for the office of president-elect. As Christine mentioned, the two president-elect candidates and the two middle-level at-large candidates will make brief statements here this afternoon. So first, I will introduce those candidates for uncontested positions on the board of directors. So please stand and be recognized when I call your name. From Region 2, William Ziegler, Principal, Pottsgrove High School, Pottstown, Pennsylvania. From Region 4, Becky Waters, Principal, Moorcroft High School, Moorcroft, Wyoming. From Region 8, Alan Long, Principal, Jefferson County High School, Louisville, Georgia. And from Region 7, Diversity Representative Raquel Martinez, Principal from Isaac Stevens Middle School in Pasco, Washington, and unfortunately she was unable to be with us here for the conference. I will now introduce the candidates for the contested position of President-elect. Please stand and be recognized when I call your name. Mary Pat Cumming, Principal, The Fair School, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Peter Krasinski, Principal, Lancaster Middle School, Lancaster, New York. Each candidate for the position of President-elect will make a 5-minute statement. I want to remind the candidates that the countdown clock, which is down here in front of Mr. Allison, will monitor your time. And when the red light comes on, you must stop your speech. You may not speak beyond that time. Prior to this meeting, we conducted a coin toss to determine our speaking order. And our first candidate this afternoon is Peter Krasinski, Principal, Lancaster Middle School, Lancaster, New York. Peter?
Great leaders in every school committed to the success of each student. That is NASSP's vision and mission and why I am running for the position of President-elect. My passion for education was instilled by my grandparents who came through Ellis Island looking for a better life. Along with my parents, they are the reason I am a first college graduate in my family, which put me on a path to be here before you today. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Krasinski, and I'm the proud principal of Lancaster Middle School, a suburb near Buffalo. I've been an educator at the secondary level for 36 years, 25 years as an administrator, and starting my 19th year as a building principal. I want to channel my experiences to represent all secondary school leaders across this country. I am seeking your vote for President-elect of the National Association of Secondary School Principals. I am starting my third year on the NASSP Board of Directors. During my time on the board, I have been a part of many discussions and decisions related to the common issues we all face every day. What I realize is regardless of your location in the country, we are more alike than different. This became apparent to me during conference calls as a state coordinator and reinforced during the Board of Directors meetings. Principal and teacher shortage, advocating for Title I and Title II funding, undocumented students, and school safety. These are just a few of the areas our board has taken a leadership role to provide factual and practical methods for school leaders. These resources help improve decision-making and give us the tools to advocate for the betterment of our schools. I want to continue what prior presidents and boards have done to amplify the voice of NASSP. I will look for innovative ways for our association to be the leading voice for all school leaders, because we still have a lot of work to do. The Federal Education Department lacks confidence in our current system, and there were reports of merging Department of Education and Labor. Many have commented about the void in leadership for public schools by the Secretary of Education. Where some see a void, I see opportunity. I want us to fill that void and seize the moment with research-based solutions that assist all practicing principals to solve the complex problems we encounter. Our association is the premier leader in professional development and position statements, which are exceptional resources for all principals. Through the early year of 2000s, we were encouraging student leaders to work towards instructional leadership with our Breaking Ranks frameworks. Now, research verifies that strong leadership from a principal is the significant reason for student success. NASSP will be rolling out at this conference our research-based initiative, Building Ranks, comprehensive study to empower you, the principal, in today's collaborative school environment. NASSP's new Policy and Advocacy Center is a perfect example of a unified effort through Twitter, Facebook, and email to send messages to our respective congressional representatives. These initiatives give us a unified voice that can and has made a difference. These are evident recently when Congress was determining Title I funding. Our voice was heard, and not that all the funding was there, but it was kept. The single most important role the NASSP president has is to govern the NASSP Board of Directors, and I promise to do so in a contemporary way. I want to lead the board to effectively meet the needs of our membership today, tomorrow, and ensure sustainability. As president, the end result is to serve our constituents, regardless of my personal interest or philosophy. My experience on the Policy and Governance Committee has given me insight on past practices and how we are ever changing to meet the evolving needs of school leaders. This experience has been a natural segue to my membership on the Bylaw Review Advisory Committee, which currently is looking to improve the governance of our association. After this committee's recommendations are vetted by the board of directors, it will be the blueprint for our association moving forward and the foundation for our continued viability in an ever-changing educational landscape. NASSP needs to continue to foster relationships with other national associations on common ground issues. As a board, we need to be innovative and have the insight to lead this association through dialogue, research, and listening to our members. We cannot be reactionary, rather timely and laser-like with our responses and actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next, I would like to introduce Mary Pat Cumming, Principal, The Fair School, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Good afternoon. What will it take to lead NASSP into the future? I have considered that question carefully, and I am honored to speak with you this afternoon to seek your support in my candidacy for the President-elect position of NASSP. My unique professional background and experience in serving principals at the state and national level, including the MASSP and NASSP Board of Directors, has created a foundation and prepared me for this role. With over 25 years working in rural, suburban, and urban schools across K-12, middle, and high school configurations, I understand the needs and issues that accompany these uniquely complex settings and can truly represent principals across the country because I can relate to what they are encountering. Serving in a number of environments has afforded me the opportunity to work with people from diverse backgrounds, developing a competence that is fundamental to leadership. I'm not just talking about cultural competence, but about education and racial equity. If elected, I will work with the board to ensure that we examine issues and solutions with an education and equity lens. Doing so will allow all voices to be heard, positional power shared, and consensus attained. Simply put, I will make sure that we gather diverse input by elevating the voices of the board, gaining the perspectives of coordinators and state affiliates, and working to advance the work of our organization. Central to that work is our strategic intent vision of a great leader in every school committed to the success of each student. Great principals in our school are essential right now more than ever because public education and public schools are under scrutiny like never before. Their very purpose and value is being questioned and challenged by our communities and our politicians. And given this turbulent environment, part of our strategic intent is that NASSP must keep learning, and we keep it at the core. We must remain nimble and responsive to the ever-changing needs of principals. Because principals value being able to turn to NASSP to provide the professional development, learning networks, and support with student programs and guidance to sharpen our leadership skills. Because this strengthens our collective voice, where we can change the rhetoric and highlight the overwhelmingly positive things that are happening in our schools every day. Each and every day, we provide safe, secure, and challenging learning environments. And this is why I remain hopeful. And I'm committed to principals, and I'm committed to the future of NASSP. I know that creating a value proposition for members with an equal focus on principals and student programs is central to the viability of our organization. And this includes strong commitment to balancing financial growth and sustainability while creating innovative and transformative programs. Having served on the board, I understand the fiduciary responsibilities and future-ready planning that is necessary to sustain our excellent financial status, and I will work with the board and NASSP staff to ensure that financial stability and profitability into the future. Central to our growth is also NASSP's current and future sponsorships and partnerships. We must engage our valued corporate sponsors and identify new sponsors in alignment with our mission and our values. And my school is in the urban center of Minneapolis, which is a large corporate hub for over 27 Fortune 500 companies. I've been at the table with partners like Target and Ameriprise, forming over 20 reciprocal partnerships that benefit not only our school, but the philanthropic and community service needs of those corporations. There is a saying, if you don't have a seat at the table, you might be on the menu, but I prefer the saying, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring your own chair. Part of the president's role includes maintaining and growing partnerships and gaining sponsorships for the work of the organization. Working in tandem with the board and staff, I will use my expertise to do just that. As I have been involved in creating partnerships for my school, I have been a strong advocate for our organization in the political arena. As the Minnesota State Coordinator for 8 years and Secretary on the Board Advocacy Committee, I've established lasting relationships with NASSP staff and education and representative staffers on Capitol Hill. As president, I will leverage this experience and work beside our state affiliates and coordinators with our advocacy staff to promote our positions through testimony, action, and on emerging and relevant topics. NASSP does not operate in isolation, and neither can its president, which brings me back to my opening question. What will it take to lead NASSP into the future? It will take a president who confidently directs the board, communicates with all levels of the organization, listens to members, and connects with public and private agencies to promote and support our mission and vision. I have what it takes, and I am committed to principles and committed to the future of NASSP. I ask for your vote for president-elect.
Thank you, Mary Pat. I will now introduce the candidates for the contested position of middle level at large. Please stand to be recognized. Trish Perry, Principal, New London Spicer Middle School, London, Minnesota. And Gwendolyn Taylor, Principal, Huntington Middle School, Warren Robins, Georgia. Each candidate for the position of middle level at large will make a 3-minute statement. I will remind the candidates that the countdown clock will monitor your time and that when the red light comes on, you must stop and you may not speak beyond that time. Prior to this meeting, we conducted a coin toss to determine speaking order. And our first middle-level at-large candidate this afternoon is Gwendolyn Taylor, Principal, Huntington Middle School, Warren Robins, Georgia.
Good afternoon. I am happy to be here with you today in Chicago. And for the short time that I have with you, I would like to talk about commitment. Commitment is defined as a promise or a dedication to something. In our careers, commitment matters. I am committed to promoting successful schools through prepared, networked, and committed principals. I have been serving in middle schools in the same school system for 33 years, so really I am actually happy to be anywhere. 33 years equals 1,720 weeks, 12,045 days. That's 289,080 hours I have spent with 6th, 7th, and 8th. Malcolm Gladwell would think that's a lot. The truth is, I love middle school and middle school students. I have spent 10 years as a teacher, 3 years as an assistant principal, and I'm starting my 20th year as a principal. I have devoted my entire career to working at the middle school level, not accidentally, but by choice. I am a proud career middle school educator. My long-term commitment to middle level education is one of the reasons that I'm running for the middle level at-large position. I believe that commitment matters. My experience on the state and national level of our association began over 20 years ago when I first became a middle school administrator. I am a committed member of Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals, and I have served in various leadership positions, including president. I have also served as the middle school state coordinator for 2 years and was selected as the Georgia Middle School Principal of the Year 2010. In 2016, I was honored and humbled to be selected to serve as the Middle School at-Large Officer on the National Association of Secondary School Principals Board of Directors. And for the last 2 years, I have served on the NASSP Policy and Governance Committee, participating in discussion and advocating policy. I have been to Capitol Hill to meet with legislators, and I have proudly represented you, my secondary colleagues. If you give me the privilege to continue serving on the NASSP Board of Directors to represent middle-level educators across our nation, I assure you I am fully committed to serve as a voice for secondary school leaders. Thank you for your consideration of my candidacy, and I would be honored to have your vote and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Next, I would like to introduce Trish Perry, Principal, New London Spicer Middle School, London, Minnesota.
Good afternoon. State coordinators, NASSP members, Board of Directors, NASSP staff, Executive Director Bartoletti, and guests. My name is Trish Perry, and I'm honored to stand before you as a candidate for the middle level at-large position on the NASSP Board of Directors. My qualifications and experience have prepared me for this role. I am like you. Each morning, I get up and face a day of many unknowns. I love the challenge of knowing that each day is different, and my main goal each day is to help the students I work with be successful, as do all of you. I am proud to say that I work with wonderful middle school students, staff, and community members at New London Spicer Middle School in New London, Minnesota. During my tenure as a middle school principal, I have developed a core set of beliefs that I will bring to the Board of Directors. All students have a right to a quality public school education. Public schools are the greatest equalizer in society, Every student deserves the best teachers and leaders working with them. Middle school educators are unique and special people with special skill sets to work with middle-level learners. This must continue to be heard on the NASSP Board of Directors. All students have a right to a safe and welcoming school environment because in the middle school, relationships are key to a student's success for the future. Students need to feel they are cared about and they know that someone is on their side. Middle school is a unique time in one's life. Students at this age level are trying to fit in as well as find their place in the world. This must continue to be heard on the NASSP Board of Directors. All students have a right to a quality curriculum and facilities. As a state coordinator, I have heard many stories from fellow coordinators regarding the lack of resources available to educate our students. Middle school students need to be exposed to multiple learning opportunities and exploratory options so they can find and pursue their passions as they move through the educational system. The same is true regarding facilities, as many of the facilities around the country are decrepit and those that are not need improvements. Lawmakers need to hear this message that in order to create creative problem solvers for the future, our facilities need to be top-notch. I have spent 19 years working with middle-level students and love every minute. I understand their needs as well as the needs of those that work with them. I am an energetic advocate for middle-level learners and educators, and I will bring that passion to the Board of Directors because our members deserve it. I hope that I can count on your support in this office. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. I would like to remind you that the candidates for president-elect will participate in a moderated conversation immediately following this Meet the Candidates session. The conversation with the president-elect candidates is open to all NASSP members. Observers will be asked to exit the room at the conclusion of the conversation with the president-elect candidates. The final slate of nominees will be presented to the membership for election at tomorrow's Members' Assembly, formerly the annual business meeting, beginning at 9 a.m. in the Grand Horizon Ballroom. I encourage all members to attend. Thank you for your interest and participation. Please transition to the conversation with the candidates. Thank you.
No.
Feeling good? All right, good.
What's in here?
Actually, you should tell me.
Ooh, that light is bright.
Can I get my sunglasses?
No,
I know that it's really bright.
it is bright. You get used to it after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're blind.
And it actually helps because you forget there are people there. And call them back to order. Oh, okay.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. You want to take your seats? Bob?
Thank you, Dan. First of all, it's great to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity to do this. As Christine mentioned, we are doing something very new, and before we go into the questions, I just want to first commend these two folks who are on the stage. I know them both as extraordinary leaders, but that they would be inclined to put themselves voluntarily through something like this in service to NASSP is itself commendable. So as we begin, can I please just ask a round of applause for these two folks?
Thank you.
And we'll get right into the questions. Thank you to the coordinators who were able to share some insights, and I think you will hear that the questions that you raised are represented in what we're going to be talking about here on stage. So, Mary Pat, let me throw it to you first, and I'm going to begin very broadly. You started your presentation with the question, what does it take to move NASSP into the future? And I'm curious about what that future looks like. So let's fast forward. It is July 2020. Your term as president will have just ended. What will have been different? What needles would have moved in what direction?
By 2020, I would hope that we would have moved forward in being able to have principals across the country utilize some of the building ranks initiatives that are being put out. It'll be a time that's 2 years from now where principals will have had an opportunity to both digest the material and then also potentially implement some of it. It will also allow us to gain some metrics on how well that is working. Another area that I believe we're going to be seeing great progress in is looking at the partnerships that we might be able to form with other both educational organizations and also in corporate sponsorships as we are trying to build our organization to stronger and create a stronger voice for us across the country. When I look forward too, there's going to be some changes in the bylaws that I know Peter mentioned in his speech that may affect many of the roles that are already in place, some of the state coordinator roles perhaps, and then also some of the governance of the board itself that may reflect some changes for our organization. I would like to see within that stronger voices coming from the state coordinators and from the state affiliates in how we are gathering metrics and data to move us forward, both in the area of professional development and then also in our student programming.
I promise I'll be mixing it up a bit, but I want to ask the same question of Pete in this case. What's the mark that you hope to have left?
Well, currently, one of the big concerns or situations we're dealing with, as many know, is the sale of the building. There is an extension coming off of the expressway there that is literally going right through Joanne's office. And that is in progress. That building, and we're in the throes of negotiating a sale and at the same time looking at relocation. And we have to be very careful with that because of the fact we don't want to end up in a lease deal. Do we go with purchasing? There's all sorts of dynamics that go with that. And that has been an ongoing conversation for the last 2 or 3 years. With that, we also have a number of partners that we have within our building now that want to come along with us. So we have to look at a space that's adequately large enough for all the other organizations that want to be with us, on top of being technologically acceptable to move into the next wave of technology that will be coming down the line. So there's a lot of variables that are in there, and that is obviously a major component. Another major component, which Mary Pat mentioned, is the bylaw review. That has just started up. I am part of that committee. That has been a major undertaking. As a matter of fact, when this conference is over, we'll be meeting for 2 straight days for about 15 hours to meet face to face so that we can really start to delve into what is governance going to look like for this association 5 to 10 years and further into the future. So to me, those are the 2 major issues that we really, whoever the president will have to deal with.
So let's stick with this notion of the new wave for just a moment. And some of the coordinators had mentioned in their questions that there is a millennial generation of leaders who are moving into the principalship. How do you see NASSP needing to change or evolve to accommodate this new audience? Yeah, please.
Oh. Well, for most of us of a certain age, we go and just walk down the hallway and we're dealing with millennials every day. They're in our teaching ranks. We can just watch them. We know how they work. They're techno savvy. They are hard workers. They work hard, they play hard. They want to be a part of a team. That's why the building ranks is such a huge component right now, because it's building the ranks within your building, within your system, to make it much more efficient and more collaborative. And all of those pieces together certainly help with that. Millennials, I can't predict the future, none of us can, but a friend of mine said a long time ago, I can't predict the future, but I can base a lot of decisions based on the history that we have had moving forward. And NASSP has always been on the cutting edge with the staff, with the board, to look into the future as best they can with based on the information they have at hand.
So, Mary Pat, you spoke very eloquently about your experience working with diverse audiences, and here's yet another one. It's across various spectrums, and age is a spectrum that we really can't ignore. So, specific to the role of the president, what kind of outreach do you think needs to come from the president and the board to make sure that a millennial generation feels comfortable and feels as if NASSP is a home to them?
As president, I think it would be critically important, especially with the millennial generation, to provide communication in real time directly from the president to the membership, so that there is a direct line of transparency. And within that, I think millennials also are looking to connect with each other and connect both through Twitter and other online platforms, so that they have the ability to connect across the country. And they're going to be looking for professional development too, in a different way than many of the members that we previously had. So really, I think the president's role has got to be very visible and out there in communication with our millennial generation, as with the rest of the membership. And that goes with the board too, to make certain that the decisions that are being made by the board and vetted by the board are also being communicated out directly, including the work of the board minutes, conversations that are taking place about the sale of the building, about the future plans that we have for the organization. And I truly believe that millennials are hungry for that information, and they access it very quickly. So it doesn't need to be long letters, long papers. It needs to be quick sound bites that they can digest, and if they want more information, they can gather that information from a different level.
So, Pete, let me pick up on that point, because a lot of the communication that NASSP is putting out that we're hoping for millennials to pick up on has to do with advocacy. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of interest among the coordinators in the role that the president plays in NASSP advocacy. So my question to you is, can you expand a bit on what you were saying about NASSP's voice? Because it sounds a little bit as if you're intentionally expanding the definition of advocacy, not just to legislation, but to the various ways that NASSP represents both itself and to the principalship to the outside world. Say a little bit more about that.
Clearly, our policy and advocacy forum has really taken off. It is state of the art right now. And that's hats off to the staff for all the work that they've done with that. You as state coordinators can go on there, you can pick your state, your picture comes up, your email comes up, you have connectivity automatically. On top of that, something we just did at the opening session, where we all were able to log in from your phone, whether it be an email, a tweet, whatever the case may be, that goes directly to your representative. You can pick up who your congressional delegation is, whether it be a senator or from the House side, and you can get a message directly to them. And it goes out and it's broadcast. Twitter's a wonderful thing for that, because everybody else picks up on it and then, of course, starts to replay that. I think the one area that we have that is just at the cusp of really exploding is our student advocacy. And that's through our RSVP, Raising Student Voice and Participation. That is a program that has been designed to allow students to have their voice, but also do it in such a way that's positive. And I think we saw a lot of that raising of the voice this past March with all the marches and all the different things that went on. this connects now the National Honor Societies with the National Student Council. It's connectivity for the students that will help them help us as administrators. I'm sure I heard many stories across the country about the students were leading these walkouts, the rallies and all of these. It wasn't administrators. We were standing there and just kind of coaching them as they went. Many of them went to us and said, hey, this is the idea we have. This is what we want to do. So that advocacy is really not just limited to what we do on Capitol Hill, which we do a great job with. It's also the advocacy that we see with our students, our teachers, and our staff.
Okay. And I want to come back to the student voice piece in just a moment, but Mary Pat, let me ask you about NASSP's advocacy overall. And again, specific to the president, what do you think the role should be of the president in advocacy, and are there gaps in what NASSP is doing right now? Are there things that we should be doing better? Are there things that we should be doing differently?
Well, the president's role is obviously going to be speaking the voice of NASSP, whether it's through position statements and providing testimony to legislators at Capitol Hill and others. But I also think that the president's role has to go beyond that. And again, it's got to be the call to action directly from the president to the state affiliates and directly to the state coordinators, so that we have, again, that direct line of transparency and speaking from one voice. When you're talking about something that might be something that could potentially be missing from that advocacy, I'm actually going to tag back with Peter, because I think the student piece of this is critically important, to be bringing the students' voice in to how we are bringing forth the information and bringing forth the type of advocacy that we need to. I think of, I was able to participate just last month in the NATS 2CO. It happened to be in Minnesota. And it was fascinating to watch what students were doing, not only in advocacy at that conference, but also in looking at being able to move that forward on a global level, and then also to engage in change for them, encouraging each other. So as I'm looking at the advocacy for the president, I really do believe that we have to have a strong voice that not only, again, pulls in the voices of the state coordinators, but also is very loud and very vibrant on Capitol Hill.
So let's stick with this notion of student voice for just a moment. Pete, student voice has gotten a lot of attention, as you've both noted, over the course of 2018, largely because of what we saw happen in Parkland and other places. And I know that we've all been very impressed with those students. So student voice as an expression has really caught on. It's even a Twitter hashtag, so everybody is using it, and often what happens in cases like that is that the definition of it begins to fall off, and it becomes very difficult to define what student voice means. Can you clarify it for us? When we talk about student voice, when you talk about student voice, what is it that you mean?
To me?
Please.
Yes. Well, to me, student voice is about students coming forward with using their real voice, their real comments about what it is that they want to see changed, and then also being able to create a system and a platform so that not only are they being able to bring that forward and gather input from their fellow students or a group of students, and then also bringing that forward with a plan of action and then moving that action into fruition. So student voice to me is not just students coming to you as principals with a petition for changing the lunch period or increasing passing time. We have to help guide them and guide them through the process of developing not only the plan to gather input, but also to create a platform and action, and then also put that action in motion with our support. And recently, Casey Teskey from Idaho had a blog, and what he said was that we don't need to decide, we need to help guide. And I think that's critically important in student voice, is that we are there in the background as principals, helping guide students to those leadership skills that include advocacy for whatever it is that they're looking for. So student voice to me is much broader than students bringing forth a complaint. It really is about how are they going to take that and put it into action.
So Pete, I'll now ask you to define student voice as well, but as a corollary to that, I'm wondering if you have opinions about whether NASSP is on the right track. Are we doing things that we should be doing? Are there gaps in what NASSP is doing? Or is NASSP getting it right with regard to student voice? You already spoke about the advocacy piece, and are there others as well?
Well, certainly, we can always do better. We have to evaluate where we are right now and then move forward with calculated steps in order to make sure that we're not putting students in harm's way. One of the things with regards to student voice, I'm always cautious about the generalization of student voice, because my concern is always about the kids that aren't the vocal. You know, the kids who are in your building that they're not on sports teams, they're not in National Honor Society. They're the average Joe kid that goes through that. And one of the things we've actually incorporated, and we've done this for a number of years in my district, is we actually meet with a group of students who represent all of those, all the constituents. It's a lot of kids that just kind of fly under the radar. And we meet monthly with myself and the other managers within the building. And we talk about different things and what's going on. And we really get a great pulse of what the students are thinking. Their voice, they know the inner workings of our building better than any of us, and we know that. But getting them to be in an environment where they feel comfortable to come forward and relate information to you is critical. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. And I really believe that, the building ranks is going to be a component to that, about the connectivity and all those components.
Okay. So, Mary Pat, during the course of your speech, you mentioned outreach to a number of different audiences. That was very important. You had suggested state coordinators, and you also zeroed in on corporate sponsors. You mentioned specifically Target and Ameriprise. You're in the Minneapolis area, and fortunately the headquarters are right there. So clearly you have experience reaching out to corporate partners. You've done it as a principal. How would you translate those experiences and the expertise and the skills that you've gained to your role as president of NASSP?
The process that we use to form partnerships in my school, I think, can translate itself into the presidency. And it is about being able to seek partners that really are matching the mission and vision, so that you are creating an opportunity for you and the partner, whether it's a corporate sponsor or not, but in this particular case, if we're talking just about a corporate sponsor, to be taking that corporate sponsor, trying to match your mission and vision, and then also trying to figure out what is it exactly you're looking for. So what is the purpose of the partnership that you're trying to form? And then what is the potential reciprocal benefit both for you and also for the corporation? I can see it translating directly into the actions of the presidency, because when you are reaching out to create that partner, you want to make sure that you are unity, again, for the mutual benefit. And then I think also beyond that, you've got to be thinking further about what is the partnership's length, what is the partnership's purpose, and how can you pull in diverse opinions in looking for partners that you might be wanting to connect with. Within that, I also think that we would be missing something if we didn't reach back out to our state affiliates who also might already have partnerships and sponsorships within their own state that we could potentially elevate to a larger level and bring to the national level for us here at NASSP.
So, Pete, you mentioned the mission, vision, strategic intent of NASSP, and as we move forward, we are considering that in addition to providing service directly to principals, we need to take a look at who the other stakeholder groups are. We spoke about corporate partnerships just a moment ago. Who are the other groups that NASSP needs to be reaching out to so that we can be as effective an organization as possible and provide the best service possible ultimately to principals?
One of the groups that I don't think it's been intentionally neglected, but I think would be a huge partner for us would be the National PTA, and getting parents on board with us with the various initiatives that we have. That's just one area. I think parents it would be a huge component. Another one that I think we miss, and we have had discussions about this, is what is the makeup of NASSP, looking at the collegiate ranks. Bringing in institutions, professors, and so forth, who can add value to our discussions around the board, but also add value to our association. I think those are two huge areas that we can gain a lot of momentum with. And again, as I said in the speech, is any organization that believes and has the same principles that we do, I think we can partner with in order to get our initiatives out there.
Okay. So I'm very sensitive to our live audience here. And I want to give you both an opportunity to speak. And both of you mentioned it rather tangentially, but let me allow you to speak directly to the kinds of relationships NASSP should have with the state associations. State associations obviously are a very important stakeholder group. So Pete, let me kick it to you first. What should NASSP be doing with regard to state associations? Are we getting it right? Or do we need to be getting it better?
Well, again, starting my third year on the board, we've had those types of discussions around the table with regards to the disconnect that sometimes feels is there. It's not necessarily intentional, but it does happen. One of the things that has started is we're calling it the talking tour, where we have representatives from our office that are sitting down with state executives, and they're meeting with them, and it's a listening tour. It's not about tell us what you need and we're going to tell you what we're going to do. It's how can we collectively and collaboratively work together to make it better membership, make it better for all members at the state and at the national level. And that listening tour has started, and I do believe there's going to be more of that scheduled into the future. But I think that direct one-on-one contact, not picking up a phone, not emailing and going back and forth, but taking the time, because all our time is precious, as we all know. And to me, that's the most valuable face-to-face time you can get with someone.
Mary Pat, the success of the states ultimately translates into success for NASSP. What do we need to be doing?
I agree actually with Peter on this, because in Minnesota, I know that listening tour was extremely successful in actually being able to provide more information to our executive director and to the programs in Minnesota that actually, I believe, changed some of the thoughts about the national organization. I also believe strongly that we need to not only be looking at states where we have very strong support, like Minnesota has 98% of our members are NASSP members as well. There are states that have where we have many fewer members percentage-wise, and I think we have to be also addressing what is missing, what is the missing narrative and the missing voice in those states. So being able to have those conversations with the states to find out why is it that they're not joining, right? And what are the services and the member services and programs that we are not offering that we might be able to add. And then also, when we're thinking of that from even the professional development standpoint, what is it that we can be doing for those member states to be creating opportunities for those states to come to NASSP as the leader. And just one other thing I want to add to that is that recently the board was seeking a more diverse candidacy for members of the board. And within our bylaws, there are some recommendations that can be made by the board to make sure that we have diversity amongst the board, both in region and also in gender and in ethnicity. One of the thoughts I had on this is that I do think that there may be a disconnect between the conversation that's occurring with state affiliates and as to what the not only role of the board members are, but what those desired candidate qualities are, not necessarily coming directly from our executive director to the state affiliates and directors, but how are we taking that message that the state directors have and being able to broaden that to the membership within each state. So one of the ideas that I can think of too is to being able to broaden our outreach to members within the states so that there's an opportunity for them to understand what the protocols of the board are, what they would encounter as a board member, and potentially increase the candidate pool that could be chosen from each either region or state.
So, Pete, Mary Pat raised a point right there that I wanted to make sure that we raised, so thank you for doing that. You've been a part of the conversations on the board about diversifying the membership on the board itself. Is that something that would continue under a Krasinski administration?
Certainly. Being a part of the policy and governance, we came up because we had difficulty trying to identify what does a board member look like, and we came up with a board member profile. and that was sent out to the states. Also, we are taking a very aggressive, what I feel very aggressive stance on the fact that we do need diversification on our board. We need to look at different people coming on from different walks of life. We got to look at them from male, female. It's very clear if you just take a picture of our board, it's very male dominated. And so we're addressing that in the sense that we have, as a board, directed Joanne to move forward with talking with state execs and, you know, pushing the issue with regards to this is what we are looking for, and these are the types of people we are looking for. And the governance, the policy and governance brought to the board a policy in order to promote that so that she could do that work.
One of the points, and we're going to stick with this because this is an important governance piece. Pete, you mentioned in particular during the course of your comments that your primary duty as president is to govern the board of directors. And a number of the coordinators picked up on the language duty of care that appears in the document that you all received that describes what the president's role is. Now, the duty of care simply means that the president, as the person who's governing the board, chairing the board, is making the best decisions possible in the interest of NASSP. And I'd be curious to hear from both of you, what are the litmus tests that you would use? How do you know if NASSP is doing a good job? What is the best interest of NASSP? Let me start, and Pete, let me kick it to you first. Well, what are the litmus tests? Maybe how do you know if NASSP is doing well?
Well, clearly, any time if I was president and speaking on behalf of the association, I am not speaking my thoughts. I am working with our public relations department to craft language, and so it's a united front going out and continue that message across the board. This is not about me. This is about what's best for the association and representing the board in a professional way out in the public and getting our message out there. Right now, I think we have a very solid public relations department. I think a lot of the information that is coming out is research-based. It's right on cue, and I think we're doing a great job. Again, is there room for improvement? Always, and we will continue to do that. But I think we also have to be very careful when you start getting into federal legislation and some of the issues that are coming out, because I don't think we can bend our principles as an association just to get back at throwing something back out there. I think we need to be headstrong. I think we need to be very particular on how we answer to certain constituents, and we have to do that from the voice of the entire association.
I want to make sure I understand the point that you're making there. Are there statements that we should not have been making over the course of the past several months?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm looking at collectively, we need to have the voice of NASSP be solid across the board. And so I just don't want us to diminish our mission of great leaders in schools for all students because of the fact we don't like something that comes out.
Okay. Mary Pat, let me put the same question to you then, but in a slightly different way. How do you know that NASSP is, in your language, advancing toward its future? What are the things that you're going to be measuring to make sure that we're moving in a good direction?
I would be measuring our success again in not only membership, but also the access that members are taking to some of our professional development opportunities. Right now, we are not necessarily gaining metrics on all of those, and I believe we need to be gaining metrics on everything that we do to be sure that we are on the right path and on the right trajectory to meet our goals. I do want to talk just a little bit, if I can, about also just about the president's role and what Peter was mentioning, because when you are president, you are speaking the voice of the organization, including those position statements. And when we are looking at how we would communicate our messages out, the president has to be speaking from from the organization standpoint, to be able to communicate directly to our constituents. And when we are on the board, for example, there is no voting membership for the president. So the president has to be guiding the board in the governance area to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard and that we're collecting all of the input that we possibly can. So again, to me, when we are looking at how do we make sure that we're moving that forward in our, it would be talking about the metrics that we can gain as we are looking at our program services.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that we should be gathering as many metrics as possible, but clearly there's some metrics that matter more than others. I mean, we can collect all kinds of data, but not all data is going to matter quite so much. What's the data that really matters? So what are the things that we should be attending to more than other things to recognize if we're moving ahead in the right way? Let me stick with you on this one, Mary Pat, and I want to ask Pete the same question.
I think what you're asking is so I am clear on the question, is really about how do we determine whether or not we're on the right path?
Okay, answer that one.
And how do we determine whether what we are currently offering to our membership is being successful? Am I hearing you?
Okay.
Okay, so.
Sounds good.
That sounds good? Okay, I'll go with that. I do think we have to, again, be looking at the professional development that we need to be able to help principals in the ever-changing job that they have, to be able to say, what are the things that in our jobs that are currently affecting us? When we look at some of the surveys that we have done recently, and we're looking at the places that principals are saying, we need help, we need assistance in this particular area, that we as an organization are being responsive to that. For example, the document that was placed in our folders just this week is looking at the principals needing executive functioning skills to be able to manage a team, to be able to communicate, and to be able to provide community input and engagement. And when I'm looking at that as a potential metric and something that we want to be able to gather information on, I would have to be looking back again to the programs and services that we have and how members are accessing them, and whether or not principals are getting what they need from us. So it would have to be an outreach and communication to them to find out what is it that what is it that you asked us for, and did we deliver on that?
Okay, so Pete, a similar question. You had spoken about message penetration, and certainly that's something we can measure. Are there other things that, the other metrics that are going to be important to you for the organization?
Well, I think the people that are sitting right in front of us are state coordinators. They are a great resource and a direct pipeline to each state that we represent. I think getting them more involved in the conversation, which is going to be part of, I believe, the conferences in the future, where they're going to be able to, we're going to be able to collectively get together and send out the same message. And I think they are a missing, not missing element right now, but I think they're a resource we haven't really used to our fullest potential. Another one is through our student programs and working with all of those individuals who are working with our students. All of the counselors, or I should say the National Student Council organizers in our schools. I believe there's a lot of connectivity there, and I think there's a lot of information that can be filtered down that way as well.
Okay. Both of you had mentioned breaking ranks, both during the course of your comments and then in various answers here. Obviously, building ranks is going to be a very important dimension of NASSP moving forward, and certainly during one of your administrations. So we have breaking ranks K-12. We understand that one of the president's main roles is to advance a vision for leadership development for the principalship. Connect those two for me. What does building ranks K-12 mean for your vision for leadership development? Mary Pat, let me start with you.
Yeah, the executive summary, of course, just recently came out. So in reviewing that, what I noticed immediately was that leadership is at the very foundation. And as an organization, we need to provide leadership opportunities and development so that our principals can attain success in looking at the two pillars. When you're looking at both of the pillars that are in building ranks, it's really got to be about how do we attend to both, and how does our organization support the learning for principals to do both, because when we're looking at our strategic intent about having learning at its core and learning, the process of learning, not only as a professional development opportunity, but learning as an organization, we need to be taking that building ranks document and then looking at the two pillars and being able to have principals access the opportunities within it, and then apply them in their buildings.
Okay. Pete, Breaking Ranks K-12.
It's about collaboration. It's about working with a team of people. You went back, one of the earlier questions was about millennials. This is a perfect way to merge those together, pulling in those individuals that kind of will give you different thought patterns. A lot of people, I kind of think that if we were here 50 years ago and this type of forum was going on, you probably would have heard someone complaining about, the baby boomers coming through and what are we going to do with them? Well, we're kind of going through that cycle right now, and I think the millennials coming in, we need to embrace. And I think they offer a lot to what we can do to get a lot more done in our association.
I want to spend a little bit of time speaking to some of the issues that I know are going to be continuing hot topics into the administration of the next president. And one of those is school safety. Now, we talked about student voice a little bit ago. We talked about how student voice has been amplified as a topic unto itself, largely because of the students from Parkland. And I'm not sure, in fact, I am sure that we do not have a common definition across the education community of what school safety means. So, as the president, how are you articulating this message about what the priorities are for school safety? And Pete, let me begin that conversation with you.
Well, the first thing is one size does not fit all. What is appropriate in my building is not necessarily appropriate for a building down the road. You have to build the culture within your school. You have to have, I'm fortunate enough to have an SRO in my building, and I work really tight with him, and we have a safety committee. We get teachers together. We have students that are on those committees to give us information, to tell us where are we flying. We practice all the drills just like everyone else does, but we bring outside observers in from our local police department to let us know, hey, this is a weak spot. This needs to be done there. Our district and we're very fortunate, just passed a major bond issue that will increase school safety as far as hard items, different doors, windows, etc. But really it comes down, I think, to the culture. It's the being open, going back to the student councils and all of the students that we deal with, to open up that culture so that they feel comfortable reporting, coming forth, and identifying situations that are happening. Very, very close to what our speaker said this morning about the second backpack.
Mary Pat, let me ask you a somewhat more specific question, because Pete had pointed to what is an emerging dichotomy out there in the education community about school safety, and that is, do we do all this culture stuff, or is it a matter of hardening the schools by putting a new shatterproof product in the front doors and making sure that we're arming teachers and on and on? Are we having the right conversations, and where do you see the balance between the two?
I think we are having the right conversation, because I do believe that it is twofold. I don't believe that you can do one in isolation. The infrastructure of our schools is critically important. My school, just speaking from my school as well, is that up until, I'm in urban Minneapolis, right downtown, and up until this year, we did not have a door buzzer on our door. Our building was wide open. And I believe that we felt secure, we felt safe, and the students felt welcomed and safe in our building, and so did our families. But then when the rhetoric begins about school safety, we also felt that we had to, shut that down and make sure that we were providing another level of safety, which is also that emotional and psychological safety that students and families actually need. So I believe that the conversation is two-pronged, and I believe that we have to be thinking about both levels. Ultimately, though, there's absolutely nothing that is going to replace the relationship that we need to be forming with students and providing opportunities for that. As I was looking at the Title II budget that was sent to us and the information that we received both in Title II and Title IV, those are both critical areas for us to be concerned with, especially in the area of school safety. When we're looking at Title II being us as principals and opportunities for us to have professional development, and Title IV being some of the school counselors and psychologists, the bottom line is we have to meld them, because even if we're looking at building ranks and looking at the fact that we are the leaders of the building, right, and we are the not only instructional leaders, right, but we also are leading learning, we have to balance the fact that we are creating systems so that we are leading our teachers in understanding those social emotional skills that are absolutely critically necessary to form relationships, because we can't be simply saying, go to the counselor, go to the school psychologist, right? We have to be training our entire staff to have that immediate relationship when a student walks through the door, and to be able to identify what's happening within the classroom. So I'm tying this back together because I truly believe that we are on the right path. And our advocacy in Title II and in Title IV are going to make a huge difference in how we continue to secure our schools and how we are providing that social and emotional aspect for students.
So then let me bring it back to the advocacy piece, because there is clearly a policy intervention there. So Pete, Title II, Title IV, obviously there's never enough money to do everything that we want to be doing, but are there other policy interventions that we should be encouraging or advocating for?
I think a lot of the, again, going back to infrastructure of buildings is one thing, but it's not, you can't have a perfect system. It's not going to, it's just not one thing that'll solve the whole problem. So it is multi-pronged, as Mary Pat said. With those monies coming down, certainly that's going to help a number of schools. You just had the buzzer put in, we've had it for years. And that's the difference between the entire country. It's going to be different in different places. But I think the mental health piece is another component that we have to look at. And that's actually one of the topics that we just discussed at the board this past week is, do we need to come out with more of a statement on mental health for young people? And it's just not young people, it's adults as well.
Another topic that seems to be perennial that I don't think we've solved yet, maybe somebody out there has a solution, or maybe you too, is this notion of retaining and finding the best teachers that we can. As long as I've been at NASSP, we have been struggling with that, and I know that well beyond those years as well. Are there policy interventions, again, bringing it back to advocacy, are there policy interventions with regard to finding and retaining the best teachers that we should be advocating more strongly for? Mary Pat, let me start that with you.
I actually believe that the policy and our position statement that we put out just 2 years ago, which I helped to work on when I was on the advocacy committee for the board, actually is extremely strong. I think that it is looking at a number of different options for states and also at the federal level to being able to create opportunities and pathways for teachers, especially in those really, really hard to fill areas, sciences, special education, and mathematics, chemistry, where we are across the country feeling that. And in some of our rural communities in particular, they're feeling it even more than I am in Minneapolis, right? But even in the urban centers, there's a huge shortage, as we know, of teachers in certain categories. I also think maybe not so much in advocacy, but we also have to be thinking about how are we communicating and connecting to the university level that can help funnel and help move teacher candidates. And maybe even it's a teacher candidate that's in an engineering program that is being able to be identified as a potential teacher and being able to make certain that they're given the pedagogy necessary to have them come into the fold as a teacher. So I agree that we may be needing to do some on the national level, but I also think that we need to be looking at our connections also with the university level. And the position statement is really strong that we have currently out there.
Okay. Pete, on the same topic, teacher quality, how do we fix this?
Well, I actually agree with Mary Pat from the university standpoint. I think there needs to be a conversation from the federal level to the collegiate rank. We see a lot of initiatives that are rolled out in our respective states. And what ends up happening is they're targeting the public school systems, but yet the collegiate rank are not producing the individuals already prepared to take those initiatives on. It's kind of flipped. And so what a lot of districts end up doing, I can only speak for my own, is they do a lot of professional development to bring them up to date on the policies and procedures that they should have already had when they were in school. So I totally agree with Mary Pat on that. I also agree with the fact that the position statement is very strong. So I think we need to continue the rhetoric. I think we need to continue to put that voice out there and keep banging on doors and windows to try to get people to wake up to say, look, this is becoming to the point where it's becoming a crisis situation. And we're not, our current education department is not helping promote education across the country very well. So that is, that is another hurdle that's been put in front of us.
Okay, so you open that door. This administration, I think, regardless of your opinions of the administration, I think we can all agree that they behave in a manner that is, we'll call it, unorthodox. How should NASSP, and Pete, let me begin with you, since you opened this door, how should NASSP work in a manner that is constructive without bending on our core beliefs with this administration?
Well, I think that, to me, that is the utmost of importance, is not bending on our core beliefs. We need to put position statements out there that state what's in the best interest of students and our members, and continue to hammer that home. We can't control what comes out of the education department. They're gonna pretty much do what they are going to do. To me, it's important that we stay steadfast, you know, and continue to do the work that we're doing, and hopefully, by the time either one of us are done with our particular time on as a president, there will be other changes that will be coming that November. So who knows what's going to happen there. But I think we really need to keep our initiatives, our voice out there through the policy and advocacy, continue to hammer home with our representatives, and because it has worked. We have seen some glimmers, cracks in the armor, so to speak, and there has been some back off. So I think really keeping our core principles is really the most important thing.
Yeah. So school choice, discipline guidance, equity across the board. Mary Pat, this current Department of Education has not demonstrated that it is particularly friendly to the issues that matter most to principals. Should we continue full bore and get in the Secretary of Education's face, or is there a more constructive way that you think NASSP should be working with her?
I think we do both. I think we do two things. I think we need to be coming into contact with the secretary, and at the same time, on the backside, I think we continue our advocacy efforts to move our initiatives forward. There is no question that we are the leader in education across the country. And our voices, my voice is not being heard, but our voices are.
Sorry.
So something must have happened. Am I still on? Am I not on? Okay, anyways, I will continue to talk as the principal does. Okay. But I believe that as Peter did state, our positions are strong. They are extremely well researched, they are well thought out, they are well meaning, and they are representative across the country. Now, there may be some individual states, there may be some individual departments that may not agree with everything, but collectively we continue that strong voice. I do think that we do have to continue to take very, very strong stance on some of the issues and topics that are currently in front of us, including the immigration of undocumented students, the information on undocumented students, and also our transgender students. Those are two extremely vulnerable groups that we have to continue to push hard, and we have strong position statements that cover, and they also are connected to a number of our other education partners. So I would say continue the course on that, but I don't necessarily think doing just one or the other is going to get us where we need to be. I think we have to be coming together as constituents across the country through our advocacy department and advocacy committee in order to move that forward.
Okay, so my final question is to simply ask you about your priority topic. Now, we spoke about school safety a little bit, we spoke about teacher quality. If there were another big education issue that you were to adopt during the course of your year, what would that be? Mary Pat, let me begin with you.
It absolutely would be continuing the support in developing principals as leaders. We are the strongest voice possible to change education within our each individual schools as well as within our districts. So I would continue to push for more principal PD, more principal opportunities to bring forth the message and to provide principals with strong leadership coming from our organization. I think if we are focusing too much on other topics without continuing to bring back the topic of the importance of the principal as the primary leader within the building, then we may end up splintering some of our work. So the building ranks document, I think, is a perfect start, and I would continue to champion that throughout my time as the president.
Pete, same question. What is the additional big topic that would represent a Krasinski administration?
I think through our Policy and Advocacy Center, improving that, bringing our voice as to the forefront, trying to come up with some creative ways to advance that, to get our word out through various means. We don't know what the new technology is coming down the pike, in the next few years. There may be something new and inventive out there that makes us even more connected. Certainly moving forward with the changes that we have with our infrastructure, we're going to have to take a look at all those things. And I think that's going to be a key point. I think governing the board to move forward and using their expertise. We just did an activity yesterday where sitting around the board, we had over 300 years of experience as far as a principal. Certainly, we're going to be able to come up and collectively as a group, and obviously getting input from membership as we do on the position papers now, where they can email in and voice their concerns on position statements and so forth. Those are the things that I would continue to advocate for and to continue to move us forward.
So my final question is of all of you, would you please give a round of applause to these two fine leaders? Good.
This is not easy, and so I appreciate both of you spending some time with us and letting us get to know you. We are at 2:24.
Very bad.
So we'll take a break for about
Excellent. Great job.
Yeah, you do too.
maybe